Do you have a Jeep Cherokee that every time you hit the throttle, you feel this big clunk in the front end? Well, you probably do. It's very common. I'm going to show you what it is and how to fix it. That's a multiple tone here, guys, and I got a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we got some bad engine mounts. Whenever you sit there and you hit the throttle, this thing sounds like the engine is slapping the hood. So I'm going to show you how to replace that. So you got to disconnect this connector right here because we got to lift the engine up. So we're going to disconnect this connector here. We got to take off this upper intake manifold. The way you're going to do that is you're going to come over here and take these two 10s off back here for the brackets. Bend the brackets back or loosen the bottom bolts to get them out of the way. You're going to take off the intake air tube, which comes along here, just a hose clamp and a hose clamp. Intake air temp sensor. You're going to take your throttle body off, disconnect your connector. And you got a purge valve that connects here, comes along here, disconnect the electrical connector, which is there, and just tuck this down out of the way, like that. Then we're gonna go ahead and take off that 10 right there, and then the lower bolt so this bracket can fall away from the upper intake manifold. Then we got 8 millivolts right here. We're gonna disconnect all of those, and we're gonna be removing this upper intake manifold. So if you take this bracket completely out, you can unbolt the two nuts over there, unbolt the manifold, and lift the manifold up and slip it out like that. Those brackets are still there. And that's what the studs look like. So back here, you're going to have a fresh air that comes from the valve cover on the passenger side, goes to right here. You're going to have this one right here, which is right there. Disconnect all that. And then this upper intake manifold is going to come out just like that. Now we're going to be taking this insulator off. So what I do is I put the manifold down and I put this on top of the insulator. On top of the manifold, so I don't forget to put it back on. All right, to continue with the engine mounts, you want to disconnect your cam sensors back here. Disconnect the harness back there. I'll show you what a picture looks like.
So that's what the picture looks like with all the clips for the harness. Just pop all those loose. And then you got to take both of these out. There's one on each side. It's held in with a little clip and a push pin.
Go ahead and undo your weather stripping here. You're going to undo it all the way over to here because we're going to be removing that panel, which comes from all the way over here, and it comes all the way up because we're going to be putting a engine hanger right there. So you got to take out all these clips and remove these plastic panels on both sides. So pliers like this are what I use for these clips. I'll put a link down below for these in my Amazon store. So what I like about them is you can get in here and these clips only have one opening. So you can use it to grab the clip, and then you have the leverage because of the bend, and then you go underneath and then you can grab it. Also, Christmas trees work really well because you can start to pull them, and once they lift up, you can come down and grab them lower, where otherwise you're pulling a Christmas tree like that, and the angle of it eventually breaks off. All right, next step, you want to go ahead and put your passenger seat in the full forward position. Go ahead and take off the battery cover and disconnect your negative battery. You're going to come over here, and on the passenger side, you can go through here. And you're going to take off the heat shield, 2 10s, just like that. And then this side, you're going to kind of reach under here and get the heat shield off. And we need to get the nuts off the top of the engine mounts, right through there. All right, so to get the engine mount nuts off, you got to come through the front. Well, there's not a lot of room. So what works really well, and I just got these, this is really awesome, is these are Sunex Tools torque adapters. They come in a set 10 to 19. I will put a link down below. This worked fantastic. I was able to put my ratchet on here and get leverage. You just put this on, and then you put your ratchet here, and it brings your ratchet out. So there'll be a link down below for these, and they are 15 millimeter for the nuts on the mounts.
I tried to film this, but it's just too tight of quarters. That's what the torque adapter looks like on there, and then you can put a ratchet on there. So to get access to get these engine mounts out, we have to lift the engine up. So you're going to need a transverse engine hanger, and I will put a link down below to one of these, and you're going to hook on to that hook right there in the front of the engine, and it's going to lift up. And then we need to lift up the engine until we have enough clearance to get the engine mount out, and then there's bolts holding the mount to the frame. Honestly, Matco does not make this engine hanger, but that's where I bought it from. So this is what it looks like right here. And the reason we had to take the closeouts off on each side is because the side of the engine hanger went over here where it was secure, and then we're supported on the front to keep it from tipping.
So this side's easier to see. You can just come in here and loosen up the bolts. There's one there and one on the other side. One thing I did for the back bolts was I took that same torque adapter and then I brought it in and I set it down on the nut, and then you just tighten the ratchet because it's going in the opposite direction. And I was able to break them all loose with that, and I will tighten them back down with that. So when you're putting your mounts in, you're going to have to pull them down. Like you're going to have to set it in place, and it's going to be sticking up outside of the bracket. And you have to grab both sides and pull it down, and you'll get it underneath the mount bracket there. And then you have to use a pry bar to wiggle it around to get it to pop in. This one was really hard. This side popped right in, no problem.
This is what it looks like, just loosening up the bolts right there. Once you get your engine mounts tight and in place, don't forget to put your heat shields on and put your 10 milli bolts back in. And then don't forget to put your cam sensor connectors back on and clip your harness all back in place, because remember, the driver's side is under the plenum. Now, if you forget to put the driver's side back on and you get a cam sensor code, you're going to have to pull that plenum back off to reconnect it. And I always, when I connect a connector like that, I always give it a little wiggle to make sure it doesn't slip off.
Make sure that you've replaced these gaskets here on top and move all your harnesses out of the way. And once you get your heat shields back in and all your motor mount stuff done, we're going to go ahead and get ready to set the plenum in. And don't forget, you got to set it in like this. It's got to go into these brackets. And then you have this hose over here that's got to connect to the back. When you're putting your plenum back on, don't forget this guy right here. This goes around your ignition coils like that. Little sound insulator. Put that on. And then wipe up. Make sure that you've connected all your injectors, all your coils. And just pull your connectors out of the way. Make sure that you've clipped all your clips in so your harnesses sit where it needs to go. Also, make sure that you ran your harness under the fuel line and reconnected the fuel line back there. And I like to give it a little tug to make sure that it's connected all the way. All right, super important with these is this. So this lower intake manifold is plastic, all right? So these bolts that bolt the lower manifold down to the block or down to the heads, those are bolts going into bolt holes in the head. So they're machined. But the holes for this upper plenum thread into plastic. This lower manifold is plastic. There's no bosses there. Just like the throttle body. There's no boss there. That is a screw going in there. So somebody had been in here before. You can see we have these Duralast coils, and they were on both sides. So whoever was in here before, this bracket that goes back here, they only put one bolt in. Real shady, cut a lot of the support, stuff like that. So now I'm trying to torque this thing, and the bolts are just spinning in the lower intake. So now we have to pull the plenum back off, and we have to pull the lower intake back off and replace the lower intake manifold, which requires pulling the injectors out and the rails off and all that. But make sure that you use a torque wrench, because you'll have to replace this lower manifold if you don't. So if somebody has stripped this out and you need to replace this manifold, Dorman makes a replacement manifold. And I mean, really, it's just plastic. Not a big fan of Dorman, but Dorman is, it's cheaper. It's literally just plastic. It comes with the seals. The only thing that you'll need is injector O-rings. And like I showed you earlier in the video, if you have the Molly set, it comes with the injector O-rings, the red ones for the bottom and the blue ones for the top. So this is what I did right here. Got it swapped over and had this running yesterday. Heater blew hot. So gonna run it one more time, make sure it's good, test drive it. Now that you've seen this video, replacing engine mounts on a Jeep Cherokee should not be that difficult. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not super hard and it's not super easy. It's a little bit stressful because when you're lifting the engine up in the back, you want to make sure that you don't break anything. So you've got to lift it up high enough to get the old mounts out, which isn't usually that hard because they're worn. Your new mounts are going to be a lot taller. You're going to have to lift it up more. So it's going to require some finagling to get it out. I'll also put a link down below to a transverse engine mount that I recommend. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.